mid 1 and 2 to the mids, and obviously you guessed it. I'm going to use Ableton's limiter on the lows, just because they need a massive boost rather than compressing. That could also do with a bit of EQ, because there's some nasty frequencies in there. So I'll whack out that EQ. The reason I took out 200 is there because there's not much frequency content, and our snare is hitting there, so alright, that's quite bad. I'm going to take that down a bit. Much clearer. There's quite a nice low frequency that I just want to find and boost a bit. So the mids, what do they sound like? Pretty freaking ridiculous. I'm going to saturate them slightly. That's mainly for a bit of volume. Because they are quite ridiculous and there's a notch filter already on it, I'm going to accent that with another notch filter. I've got Sound Toys Filter Freak here, which is a bloody lovely frequency. What am I talking about? Filter. Move frequency. You can see I've got the automation line here, so I'm just going to run a notch through it, but a lot faster. So that's got some good movement there. The reason I took up the resonance then is because I didn't want it taking as big a notch out as it was. So what I'm going to do is copy and paste that automation over to the other basses, seeing as they're roughly the same length. Just check it sounds okay. Yeah, cool. Next up, a phaser. I'm not going to do too much more in the way of distortion because it's already got that quality. So I just want to be creating interest at the moment. What else? I'm going to use... In fact, what I'm going to do in one of these videos is show you an amazing way to use a vocoder to create a really sort of vocal bass, like the sort of Cohen sound type thing. Or if you've heard Knife Party's remix of Unison by Porter Robinson, there's a really vocal bass in that. I'll show you a similar technique to gain some that kind of effect. I'm going to put a flanger in there for a 3D effect. Yeah, that's sounding really good now. Let's hear what it sounds like together. Just turn these off, resampling. Right, it seems like it's not as clear, the clarity isn't as good as it could be, so I'm going to add in an EQ now, and a compressor just after that. The reason I'm adding in a compressor after the EQ is because when there's some muddy frequencies down the bottom of the mids, so the lower down frequencies are the ones which take up the most, they're the most powerful, if you will. So going into a compressor, it's going to be triggered by the most powerful signal which comes in, because it needs to be attenuating the most quiet signals. So the reason I'm putting the compressor after the EQ is so we can get rid of some of the more powerful frequencies Therefore, it won't be triggered by the first thing, which is kind of slamming into it. It's going to be triggered by the frequencies we actually want to compress. So nasty mud there. That's quite scratchy, but it's also quite interesting. I'm just going to take it down a tiny bit. Oh, that can come right out. Yeah, and this whole section here can come out a bit. Right, so now that we've attenuated frequencies we don't want, we're going to be compressing the frequencies we do want. Create a bit of attack, just a bit of punch. There's another frequency which is hitting slightly. Take that right out. Perfect. Cool. Now let's move on to the highs. Again, this is already very nice. So what I'm going to do is just give it a tiny bit of boost with the saturator, and I'm just going to give it some stereo width and a bit of reverb. Making sure it doesn't sort of clog up the mix too much. A really small delay as well. I want the left and right signals to be different though, so I'm just going to do that. So the reason I'm creating this very short delay is because it's called the Haas effect. Basically, when the left speaker is playing playing the same signal slightly behind the right speaker, it sounds as if the sound is it has a lot more stereo width. Wait, I'm not explaining that very well. Okay, so if they're playing exactly the same thing, exactly the same time, delayed or otherwise, then it's going to sound sort of very stable and sort of uni-positioned in the stereo width, in the stereo field, sorry. If you make it so that one side, left side, is playing slightly different time to the right side, it creates a lot more stereo width because it's hitting your ear at a slightly later or earlier time, which means your focus is driven towards the one which is hitting your ear first. And then when the other ear catches up, it perks up again, and it's a lot more sort of alarming to your brain. Like, what the fuck's going on? This is different. And then it creates a lot of stereo width. So you can see it kind of weakens the sound a bit, even though it makes it wider. So I'm just going to take down the dry wet. And next I'm going, or last rather, I'm going to add... No, actually, I'm going to add a ferret TDS just for a bit of saturation. And then a rescue AE for the stereo width. So I'm going to solo out the mids, add some punch, and solo out the sides, and add some width. It's really good to use Rescue AE after a bit of saturation, because it the punch that it gives the mids reacts a lot off distortion. If you have a very clean mid signal, then it can sound quite tinny as it slams into the compressor. It's also really good to use it after creating the Haas effect with a simple delay by obviously changing the delay time of the left side slightly different to the delay time of the right side, because but the Haas effect is very good for creating stereo width, but it leaves sort of are lacking coherence, and Rescue A just kind of powers that back together again, and it keeps the stereo width but loses the lack of coherence. Right, so I'm just going to turn this down, listen to it in the mix. That's sounding quite good. This is quite a nice section. So what I'm going to do is, it sounds quite vocal. I'm going to try and add a wow filter to the whole channel, switch it to vowel mode, use the envelope follower, and then change the filter to a band reject. Did I put it on the wrong channel there? Yeah, I did. That sounds quite nice. I'm going to take down the dry wet. So it's just accented the performance. That's the one. I like that. Oh, that sounds really good. Cool. So, I mean, I guess that was a short video, but there's not a lot else to do to that sound. In terms of adding things to the whole channel, anything I need to add, because I've got the actual sound I want, so anything I'm going to add is going to be more of a mixing effect. So I'm going to be leaving that into the arrangement section. So that's about it for this video. It's a bit of a nasty bass anyway, so there's a good little tip. Alright guys, thanks very much. Look forward to the next one. Cheers.